Posh saloon cars. They are the staple transport of business executives as they offer impressive luxury, the latest technology, decent space and a relaxing drive.
But which did you choose between the BMW 5 Series, the new Audi A6, the Mercedes E-Class, or if you want something that's a little bit more left field and you don't like diesel, the new Lexus ES?
To do that, I'm going to compare their designs.
Yes, I'm a total and utter car bore.
Critique their cabins.
I like the inside.
See how practical they are.
Oh, I'm stuck. Yeah, I'm definitely stuck.
And find out what they're like to drive.
We're just not the smartest nation.
First though, let's look at how much these cars cost.
So the Lexus starts at £35,000, the Mercedes around £38,000, the Audi getting on for £39,000 and the BMW £37,000.
With these kind of posh vehicles, part of what you're paying for is the badge on the bonnet and how expensive the car looks in the executive car park.
Do you know what the E stands for in Mercedes E-Class? It stands for elegance. Actually it doesn't, I just made that up, but it could do because it's such a graceful looking car. Now I'm going to give you a little tip. You know when you're driving at night and you think that there's a Mercedes behind you, you can tell which model it is by the amount of lines it has and its daytime running light headlights. If it's got one line, it's a C-Class. If it's got two like this car, it's an E-Class, and if it's got three, it's an S-Class.
Yes, I'm a total and utter car bore.
Now, Audi design is often criticised for being a bit of a bore too, but I think the A6 is merely understated rather than just dull.
I really like this car from the rear three quarters. Those rear haunches just remind me of the Quattro from the 80s, and that silver strip through the lights just looks really cool. Now a lot of people may say, nice arse, shame about the face, but actually I also like Audi's big gaping grille too.
Out of the three Germans, it's the BMW which is the most reserved looking.
The 5 Series is a smart enough looking car, but it doesn't exactly stand out. I mean, it's neat enough, and you absolutely positively have to go for M Sport because then you get some more aggressive bumpers front and back and some side skirts. In fact, buying a 5 Series that's not in M Sport is a bit like going to a black tie event in just a tuxedo and not wearing the black tie.
However, if you're the kind of person who would wear a white tuxedo just to be different from the rest, then the ES could be the car for you.
This is easily the most distinctive looking car of the bunch. It looks like it's wearing a samurai mask. As with the outside, the interior of this car is very distinctive. It won't be to everyone's taste because there is quite a lot going on here, but I like it. There's features such as the way these metal parts and accents are supposed to mimic those of a samurai sword. Yes, there's lots of samurai themes going on with this thing, and the quality is impeccable. So that dead straight line there, that stitching, that's done by a man's hand, not a machine. In fact, the quality of the materials generally throughout is really, really good. This feels luxurious. It definitely does. I like the inside.
But when it comes to luxury, surely a Lexus can't beat a Mercedes.
Well, the exterior of this car is rather restrained. The inside is rather showy. It's all a bit blingy and look at me. I do like the sweeping design and the open pore wood. And while the materials are generally quite nice, you feel that quality isn't quite so deep as in the other cars. It's more of just a veneer. Like, you tap things, they can feel a bit hollow and cheapy. Also, some of the bits of trim that you do actually touch like there and in the door handle is really budget, and it just lets the side down.
The A6 on the other hand does a better job of combining both style and substance.
Year after year, Audi always nails car interiors. There's something just Bauhaus about this interior. It's like minimalist, it's just industrial. I love the metallic about the place. You know, it's so uber cool. I mean, really, if you turn this car on, you should think that it would automatically just play techno music. And quality is generally good as well, so soft touch materials about the place feels solid. There's only one or two places where you'll find cheap, scratchy plastics. And even though this is a big block of plastic up here, it just looks expensive enough that it just doesn't matter.
Finally, we come to the 5 Series, which doesn't quite have the interior cool of the other cars. But that's not necessarily a problem.
I'm just going to come out and say it. This is the least interesting looking interior. However, I cannot fault the quality. In fact, I think it's the best overall. You will not find one bit of cheap plastic here. You can look anywhere you like. In the other cars, you would find something, but not here, not in the BMW. It is super sturdy, well built, and luxurious feeling.
The BMW also leads the field with its infotainment system. As standard, you get a widescreen display and digital dials. It's all very easy to use via the touchscreen or click wheel. It's just a shame that while it has Apple CarPlay, there's no Android Auto. The next best system is the Audi's, which does have both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You do have to pay extra if you want the large main central screen and the posh digital dials, but then it looks glorious and has dead easy to use menus. Unfortunately, being a touchscreen only that's mounted relatively low down, it's quite hard to use while you're driving, especially as the climate controls are operated via the lower central touchscreen. This is less of an issue with the system in the Mercedes E-Class, as it has a physical touchpad to scroll through the menus, though it's still not the easiest system to use. Also, lower-level cars get a smaller central touchscreen with basic navigation. A digital driver's display also isn't standard, while the whole infotainment is Mercedes' old system, not the latest and greatest one you get in the entry-level A-Class. Really though, it's still miles ahead of the Lexus system, which quite frankly sucks. It may have a nice bright screen, but the convoluted menus and odd mouse input method make it as easy to use as eating a rump steak with chopsticks. Really, it would test the patience of a saint. On Valium. Speaking of which, is the Lexus any good for helping your passengers relax? Well, it all depends on their height.
There's plenty of knee room here in the back. That is really good. What's not so good though is that cool looking sloping roofline means that if I sit back, my head hits the roof. Maybe it's because this car is Japanese and the Japanese are slightly shorter on average than the British. So the average height of a man in Japan, according to Google, is 171 centimetres, whereas in the UK it's 175 centimetres. But we're all kind of short compared to the Dutch. The average height of a Dutch guy is 185 centimetres. I wish I was Dutch.
Rear headroom is not a problem in the E-Class, but then it too has its own minor problems.
It's perfectly fine here in the back, but there are a few things to note if you're going to be nitpicking, which of course I am, it's my job. So, knee room isn't quite as generous as the other cars. The front seats are quite low, so it's difficult to get your feet underneath them to stretch out. Also, the seat bases don't give you quite so much under-thigh support. Is there anything else? Is there anything else? No.
It's hard to fault the rear seats in the BMW, but that doesn't mean they're perfect.
It's well comfy here in the back. Look, loads and loads of room, loads of headroom, loads of knee room. The only complaint really is the fact that if someone in front has a seat quite low, you can't really put your feet underneath it too far, look, so you can't stretch out as much as you like. You could then make use of this really deep seat base, which gives you lots of inner leg support.
Thankfully, there are absolutely no rear seat compromises in the Audi.
This is just super comfy here in the back with loads and loads of room. I'm very happy. Do you know what? If I was to order an Uber executive, I'd pick one that had an Audi A6, for sure.
And if you want to split your Uber fare 3 ways, the A6 wins out again, as it's the best for carrying 3 adults in the back at once, followed by the BMW and then the Mercedes. Last of all is the Lexus, which feels quite cramped due to its narrower cabin and that swooping roofline. There is, however, little to choose between the cars when it comes to fitting a child seat. They're all roomy enough. However, the Audi goes one better, as it also has ISOFIX mounting points on the front passenger seat. The A6 also has the most practical boot here too, due to its useful square shape.
This car doesn't actually have an automated tailgate, but it's on a spring, so it opens itself anyway. You have to close it with a bit of a slam. Not a problem though. The boot, really good, really easy to use, nice square shape. Also, the opening is really nice and wide as well. And look at this, if you want to get into the underfloor storage or to the tyre repair kit. This has a little hook, so you can just hang that over there. Another thing I like is this, look. I can fold down the rear seats, including the middle one individually. Or obviously, if I want loads of space, then look, I can do that. Isn't that nice?
Unlike the Audi, the Mercedes doesn't have folding rear seats as standard. They're an optional extra. But that's the only real complaint.
As boots go, this is more than up to the job, and there's a couple of features I really like. Look at this bag hook. So you can hang things up, and when you go around corners, your shopping doesn't slide everywhere. And this as well, I'm going to show you this. So, got quite a decent amount of underfloor storage here, and you get the Mercedes collapsible grocery box. Look at that, perfect for your trip to Waitrose, darling.
But how does the BMW compare to its German cousins for practicality?
One of the things I like about this car's boot is that the load height isn't too high, so it's easy to lift things in and out. Also, you don't have much of a load lip either. This particular car has fold down rear seats. Look, I just pull these levers here. Have to run around to the back to actually lower them though. As you'll see, decent amount of opening there to push stuff through, and I'm just going to put the seats back because you can get them so they split 3 ways, and then look, you can carry things and people. I'm stuck. Yeah, I'm definitely stuck.
You won't ever get stuck like that in the Lexus because it's not available with folding rear seats at all. But it does have an electric tailgate as standard, and unlike with those on the Mercedes and BMW, it doesn't get flustered if you try to hurry it.
Look, there you go. And then I can just slam it if I want to. And don't worry, look, it's not broken, of course. It's a Lexus. It all works fine. Well, I'm not so keen on those at the boot. Other than that, it's pretty meh.
The load capacity also isn't great on the Lexus. It's about 20% less than the other 3 cars, though its deep design does help compensate for this. The Germans are all pretty closely matched for boot space, but the Audi just beats the Mercedes, which in turn is slightly better than the BMW for carrying luggage. But surely that doesn't matter. After all, the 5 Series will surely win out when it comes to driving, right?
This BMW definitely has a sporty feel to it, the way you feel like you're really sitting in it. It actually feels like a smaller car than it actually is. It's responsive as well, the way it goes around corners, it just grips really well, stays nice and flat. The rear wheel drive pushes you along out of corners as well. The steering is sharp, but it's not the best. It doesn't feel quite as nice as the steering in the Mercedes, let's say, which is bizarre. But that's the only weakness. Engine-wise, this 2-litre diesel is all you really need. It's punchy, maybe a little bit noisy. Can't fault the 8-speed automatic gearbox though. It is brilliant, smooth and responsive. It's quiet too, however under acceleration it can seem a little bit noisy, this 2-litre diesel. Then there's the suspension, it's comfy over bumps. This car has the normal suspension, it's fine, but you can make it even better with the adaptive suspension. It really is the complete package. It can be fun, it can be comfy, it can be both. I like it. The Audi A6 sits pretty much bang in the middle of its 2 German alternatives in terms of how it drives. It's almost as comfy as the Mercedes, and it's almost as sharp to drive as the BMW. It's a fabulous, fabulous all-rounder, and the steering's sharp, although you don't really feel much of what's going on with the front wheels. That's my only complaint. Oh, I do have another. When you put your foot down with this 7-speed gearbox that you get with the 2-litre diesel, it does take a bit of time to respond, and it can be a bit jerky when you're manoeuvring around town. You can get an 8-speed with a 3-litre diesel, and that is actually a little bit more sluggish but smoother when you're just coasting. 2-litre diesel engine in this car is punchy enough, quiet enough for a diesel. This car is a fabulous, fabulous all-rounder. If I was going to buy it, there is one upgrade I'd have, and that is the air suspension, because then it's even more comfortable than the Mercedes on its air suspension. It's sublime. But people don't tend to buy air suspension. In the UK, we tend to buy options we can see, like huge alloy wheels, which ironically actually reduce comfort levels. We're just not the smartest nation. The Mercedes E-Class is all about the comfort, and it totally nails it. So it's quiet to travel in, it's comfy over bumps. In fact, the standard suspension is probably just the best out of the bunch in terms of dealing with bumps. And you can make it even better if you get the optional air suspension, then it just floats up the road. The automatic gearbox, it's very smooth, you don't even notice it changing gears. And when you put your foot down, it responds really, really quickly. And the 2-litre diesel engine in this car is punchy, yet economical. The surprising thing is that the steering actually feels quite sporty. Oh, wait a minute. And so you chuck this thing into a corner and it grips and goes round okay, but it does lean a little bit more than its German rivals. It does lull you into a false sense of security, because actually at the end of the day it's more of a cruiser than a sporty saloon car. And that's just fine, because like I said, it just plays that card brilliantly.
So then, the Audi, Mercedes and BMW all drive brilliantly in their own unique way. But will it be the same with the Lexus?
There's something you have to accept with the ES, and that's that it doesn't particularly like to be driven quickly. If you suddenly want to accelerate and go fast, the engine makes a bit of a groaning sound. And then if you chuck it into a corner, it doesn't like that much either. It's all a bit lumpen and cumbersome. So you just change your attitude, you just sit back, relax, enjoy these super comfortable seats and think, actually, do you know what? I'm more than fine with how this drives. It's just super chilled. Just don't back-to-back it with the Germans, because then you'll realise not only are they sharper to drive, they're actually slightly more comfortable and quieter too. Oh dear. This car does counter with one thing though, and that's the economy. It's getting 45 miles per gallon, which is a little bit better than I've got out of all those German cars, yet this uses petrol rather than diesel, and a lot of people are trying to avoid diesel these days.
So then, where does all that leave us?
Well, the Lexus, it's a good car, I do like it, it's distinctive, and if you don't want a diesel, it can give you some good economy, this hybrid. But really, it's not quite as good as the Germans, but how do these measure up? Well, I think I'd probably go for the BMW or the Audi over the Mercedes, only just. So it's between these two, and I think I'm gonna swing to the Audi, but only by the narrowest of margins. You know, this is a great all-round car. It looks sharp, feels posh inside, it's very spacious, it's good to drive, and it's got decent tech, and that's why it wins this test.